Welcome back to Ultimate Recall, your roundup and recap show of all things Overwatch SEA Tournament, the inaugural official Blizzard Overwatch tournament here in Southeast Asia. I'm Adam.
And I'm Steph, and we have a guest star with us today, Afiz.
Yo, what up, guys?
Hey, Afiz, welcome to the show. For those who are not that familiar with you, maybe you can let us know what you do?
My name's Afiz, also known as Sodafiz. I create content for Overwatch in Southeast Asia. At the same time, I cast for tournaments as well.
Lovely. So we're done with the second weekend of matches for this tournament, but before we get into the action, let's have a look at the two teams that have already made it to the top 8.
As you can see, we have two teams from Vietnam, the Beginner and Keep Going Boys, already in the top 8.
I love to see these two teams in the top 8, especially the Beginner with my main man, 6 grenades, and his awesome Reinhardt. Can't wait to see more of him.
I mean, you did love his plays, and we were talking about how Vietnamese teams have that synergy and coordination that is off the charts.
I mean, when you talk about Vietnamese teams, it's all about the aggression, the amount of damage they can deal up front.
Right now, let's get to the matches from the weekend. For Group 3, we have Avalon Tempo from Singapore, 4K Gaming from Indonesia, No Fear from Vietnam, Ooh La La from Thailand, and Overtimes from Thailand. See, for Group 3, all eyes were actually on Avalon Tempo from Singapore because they just won a big local tournament recently, right?
Yeah, and you know, they have a lot of good players who've been in the scene for a long time, as well as I believe Super Nea is their most recent addition.
Exactly, and let's talk about the duo tank combo coming up from the side of Avalon Tempo. MZ and Doubted, they're just unstoppable.
Yeah, but there's also No Fear from Vietnam and 4K Gaming from Indonesia. Two teams that are primed to actually burst out into the international scene and take the spot in the top 8.
Yeah, I mean, well, we have a lot of action to cover then.
Well, let's get to it. Let's start with 4K Gaming from Indonesia taking on Overtimes from Thailand.
Yeah, and 4K Gaming's standout player, Clockwise, who was playing the damage dealer or DPS class for his team, had very good positioning.
I mean, as a damage dealer, you have to know how to utilize the maps, and Clockwise, he did that.
Yep, and then afterwards, Zozos on that Roadhog actually got a team wipe of the enemy team, but it was with the help of iCreeks on that Zarya.
Zarya's one of those heroes, you can actually utilize it not just to tank or like save your teammates, but at the same time, you can deal damage as well.
Yep, and in the end, because of that, 4K Gaming took the series 2-0.
Nice, so we move on to the next match where it's No Fear from Vietnam taking on Ooh La La from Thailand.
And Kate DC from No Fear on that Genji, getting the multi-kills, going in, getting 3 or 4 at once, was just the hero of his team.
Genji's Dragon Blade, his ultimate ability is probably one of the strongest ultimate abilities in the game.
And like we have a running joke, every time you hear that Ryujin, you just run.
You just run away. There's no stopping you.
Get away from it. And you know, the synergy with his Pharah and his Winston as well in that game just did so much work.
The target prioritization coming up from the side of No Fear was just exquisite.
Yep, and they took the series 2-0.
And we move on to Avalon Tempo taking on Overtimes. This match, a lot of people were looking forward to see Avalon Tempo in action.
Yep, and their team captain MZ on his Zarya was quite a standout, but for me, the super aggressive Super Nea, Super Roadhog was what won them the match.
Roadhog is one of the best heroes to just take down enemies in an instant.
Yep, and in addition to that, Avalon Tempo actually also ran an Orisa.
Orisa is Overwatch's newest hero in the game, so it's really good to see her being used effectively.
Yeah, and with that, Tempo won the series 2-0.
Then we have the first big match of the day, 4K Gaming taking on No Fear. These two teams, like we mentioned before, they're primed to take the spotlight in the international scene, right? So they're fighting to actually earn a spot in the top 8.
Yeah, and both these teams, they came out swinging. They were both very, very good, but I think that No Fear had a bit better target prioritization, especially Zozos on that Roadhog getting the T targets.
Yeah, when you talk about target prioritization, you need to know who to take down. That's one of the most important things when you want to capture a point.
Yeah, so getting the the key targets, the important players, you want to get down the Mercy, you want to get down the squishy supports. And the interesting part was that there was a period in the game where actually all 12 players from both teams were holding on to all their ultimates.
Yeah, it's all about ultimate coordination, right? But you don't really have to hold on to those ultimates, but at the same time, you need to know how to utilize it well.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, in the end though, 4K does get the upper hand. They use the ultimates more effectively, and they take Hollywood actually quite convincingly.
The next map, Temple of Anubis.
And No Fear ran that Pharah, Mercy, Widow combination that made it so hard for the enemy team to come out because they were always hiding inside buildings.
Another target prioritization strategy coming up from the side of No Fear. Widow just deals damage from the backlines, and then Pharah, Mercy just jumps onto the point, deals damage as well, takes enemies down.
So you call that like a Pharmacy Widow combination?
Pharmacy dough.
Pharmacy dough.
Pharmacy dough.
Pharmacy dough. But I do have to have a shout out to 4K Gaming. iCreeks on that Mei actually did so much work on that Mei, got the blizzard, the ice wall, separated the enemy team. He was just, pinpoint precision with those Mei ice walls and actually changed the game to their favor, meaning that 4K took the series 2-0.
And what a way to actually start off Group 3. We were only in round 2, and we just saw that epic match. So next up, we have Avalon Temple taking on Ooh La La.
And Avalon Temple opened up with a 3-sniper lineup: Widowmaker, Anna, and Hanzo.
And King's Row is probably one of the best maps to utilize that 3-sniper lineup on attack.
Exactly, and Syndrax actually godlike on his Hanzo and godlike on his Roadhog. But I do want to give a shout out to the team captain MZ on that Zarya. He had high charge consistently throughout the matches and just did so much damage to the enemy team.
Yeah, and Avalon Temple takes it 2-0.
And then we have No Fear taking on Overtimes. See, No Fear had this impressive defensive strategy, plus their DPS output was amazing, which made Overtime struggle, and No Fear takes it easily, 2-0. Which leads us to this interesting point where there might be a potential three-way tie. So let's have a look at the standings so far. Next up, we have No Fear taking on Avalon Temple. See, this is a very important matchup for No Fear because if they can beat Avalon, they might actually earn a spot in the top 8.
But Avalon Temple wasn't going to make it easy for them, especially with Doubted and MZ, the two tanks that survived for so long.
I mean, Doubted and MZ, they're like a match made in heaven, man. They're just so good together.
Yep, and they led the team as well. Temple took the high positioning against the enemy Pharah from No Fear.
Yeah, Pharah is probably one of the best heroes to play on Icon Vault because Icon Vault has so much airspace to play with.
But in the end, the DPS of No Fear were not enough, and Avalon Temple take Icon Wall very convincingly.
So we move on to Hanamura, where actually No Fear did quite well initially, but then they kept getting trapped in that small little corridor.
I mean, think about it. The smaller it is, the harder it is for teams to get into.
Yeah, exactly, and meanwhile, Avalon Temple actually had a different approach. So they came in from multiple angles and didn't clump up together with MZ just surviving on the point forever.
Man, the Hanamura snowball coming from the side of Avalon Temple. No Fear had no answer to it.
Exactly, and in the end, Avalon Temple did take the map, so they win the series 2-0.
And so we've come down to this match for Group 3. It's Avalon Temple taking on 4K Gaming. Winner takes all. They will get into the top 8. 4K Gaming is considered like an underdog here, right?
Yeah, they are considered the underdogs considering how well Avalon Temple has been doing. And they actually went after Supernea, knowing that his DPS was pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. But then again, when you talk about target prioritization, that's one man down. But they still have 5 members from Avalon Temple to deal with.
And in the end, Supernea on his Widow actually acted as the go signal for his team. Every time he got a good kill, the whole team would jump in.
Yeah, it's all about calling the shots. When you get entry eliminations, that's the go time. That's the green light for you to just pounce onto the capture point and eliminate the enemy team.
So in the end, 4K Gaming burnt all of their ultimates in a single fight, which meant Avalon Temple actually very easily pushed it to the end and took the map.
And so we move on to Hanamura, where we actually see something interesting from Avalon Temple, where they ran as Symmetra, which we haven't seen that often here.
I mean, not a lot of teams utilize Symmetras in tournaments, but online it's actually one of the best heroes to use in assault maps.
Yeah, and Tia actually got his ultimate up so quickly that it made it, very efficient. Apart from that though, I believe that Syndrax and Supernea actually played very, very aggressively together, and their styles really complement each other, and they did a lot of work as a DPS couple.
Yeah, exactly. They're like partners in crime.
I actually want to ask about Genji, where a lot of people love seeing this crazy ninja go wreak havoc and all that. But in this match, we see that Syndrax didn't use any of his ultis.
I mean, he didn't actually need to use the Dragon Blade, I think, because, as a good Genji, you need to be able to kill without the ultimate. Otherwise, you're just a one-trick pony. And because of that, Avalon Temple took the map and the series.
And now let's have a look at the stats of the DPSs from Avalon Temple, Syndrax and Supernea.
Yeah, looking at the charts, they're both top 2% in competitive Overwatch, but when you think about it, when you look at it closely, they're both utilize Soldier 76 the most.
Yep, so we know that both of them can play hit scan heroes, but in the tournament so far, we've seen Super Nea more on the hit scan, playing Widow, playing Soldier, whereas Syndrax going onto that Genji, going onto that Roadhog.
Exactly, Syndrax is more of the type of flanking type of damage dealer, whereas Super Nea, he's more of the hit scan type of damage dealer.
So what's a hit scan?
Hit scan's all about, you know, when you aim, you shoot, you hit.
Who doesn't aim to shoot?
Okay, hit scan is when you aim, you shoot, you hit. Whereas projectile, you need to lead your shots.
Which is what happens if you aim and shoot and
exactly.
then you hit, right?
Farah, you need to aim where the opponent is going to land, and then you hit your target. But if you aim on towards the enemy, if you're a projectile, you're not going to hit it because it's going to be moving around.
So, do you get it now?
Cool. Moving on, let's have a look at the standings for Group 3. And with that, Avalon Tempo joins the beginner and keep going boys in the top 8.
Congratulations, guys.
Now let's move on to Group 4. And a hot pick for this group is actually another Singaporean team, Imaginary Friends. But you guys have like some other picks as well, right?
Yeah, I got my eyes on Game Home, man. They are one of the top teams in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, and I did say last week, Imaginary Friends versus Avalon Hexa, and I got my wish, first match.
Right, let's get into the match. It's actually a grudge match from this local tournament a week ago, right, where Imaginary Friends came out on top. Unfortunately for Avalon Hexa, this same thing happened, where they put on a lot of aggressive attacks, but Imaginary Friends were too strong, they held on, got the win 2-0. So, what do you think about your Avalon Hexa now?
So anyway, moving on to the next match, we got Malaysian Battlefield team versus Game Home. And here we see Sentinel on his Widowmaker combining with Golden Stick on that Genji for a string of quick eliminations.
Exactly, Sentinel on that Widowmaker making the right choices by taking down the enemy support. Whereas Golden Stick, I could say he is probably one of the best Genjis in Southeast Asia.
And then again on Temple of Anubis, they ran it with perfect synergy. How do you think they make it work time and time again?
I mean, again, it's teamwork, I would say. I mean, Widowmaker on the back lines up top, utilizing the top ground, getting a shot on towards the enemy supports, and then Genji just comes in, swift strikes in and takes him down.
Yep, and Game Home took the series 2-0.
Next up is Robert Emotion taking on Nerf. Robert Emotion actually emerged as a promising team in the tournament with a good synergy play between their tanks and their DPSs. Their Zarya by Kingfeed landed a great high-energy Graviton Surge that broke the Nerf team in half. And just like that, they took the win, 2-0. Moving on, we have Game Home taking on Avalon Hexa. Hey, Steph, your favorite team. Aw, you're sad. Okay, so Game Home's Golden Stick, he worked together with Sentinel, whose Winston was the key factor. He was dominating throughout both maps, and Game Home took the match 2-0. Then we have Amazing taking on Robert Emotion. This match is where we confirm that Robert Emotion is emerging as a favorite in the tournament. Their Raijin did a lot of work on both Genji and Diva. And we also noticed this pattern between the Vietnamese teams where they actually rely a lot on teamwork. So Robert Emotion took the match 2-0. Before moving on to the next match, let's have a look at the current standings.
Unfortunately here, Avalon Hexa had to drop out due to unforeseen circumstances.
Aww.
So sad.
Well, next up we have Imaginary Friends taking on Game Home, which is the pivotal match for this group because both teams hasn't lost a match yet, right?
Right, this is probably one of the best matches to watch in this group.
Yeah, and it was a very close match. It was back and forth constantly, and Imaginary Friends actually had key target acquisition, especially with Mitch, Karma, and Crispy doing, just amazing work.
Yeah, when you see Vietnamese team, they're pretty aggressive, right? Game Home, aggressive team. But hey, Imaginary Friends coming back with aggressiveness as well.
Yeah, but funnily enough, it was Silhouette on his Zenyatta who really made the game-changing kill, where he actually took out Sora with that Dragon Blade out.
A squishy Zenyatta taking down a Dragon Blade Genji? Like, how?
Yeah. And in the end, he stayed alive for so long that he and his team were able to wipe IF off the point and take the map.
We go on to the next map, Temple of Anubis.
I think that actually the story here is that the support heroes just did so much work because after that, Silhouette on that Lucio took out the enemy Reinhardt.
I mean, you think about it, Silhouette, it's good, right? But Lucio, man, one of the most mobile support heroes, it's really hard to kill as well.
Yeah, in the end, Sentinel swapping out into that Zarya kick-started the game-ending fight.
You know what's interesting? Sentinel plays a really good Widowmaker, but he plays a great Zarya.
Yeah, he actually picked off Mitch very early on, which allowed for his team to snowball into a full defense, a huge hold, and they actually took the map as well. So they take the series 2-0.
So we see like a lot of like good Zarya players for these two groups, yeah?
Yeah, and how flexible they are as well. Amzi can play a Pharah and a Zarya as well, and then Sentinel comes out with a Widowmaker as well as a Zarya.
So, these two players, I think, actually very good Zaryas, but also very good flexers.
Flexers? Is that how you call it?
Flexers. Just a little bit, yeah.
And then we have Imaginary Friends taking on Amazing. Imaginary Friends actually, they came out with a vengeance after their loss, but I think they got a little bit too mean. At one point, they were actually slapping the baby diva around.
Wait. They didn't slap the baby diva. They put the baby diva to sleep.
But that's what they were saying, like they slapped.
No. They just slept.
Twice.
Okay, I get it now. That makes much more sense. Okay, so Imaginary Friends actually took the match 2-0. Next up, we have Game Home taking on Black Tea.
And the hero of this match, once again, Sentinel on that Widowmaker.
Yeah, exactly. What's interesting is that Sentinel's Widowmaker, his aim is really good, but his positioning, man, it's so good, man.
Yeah, and because of that, Game Home take it 2-0.
You're a big Widow fan, aren't you?
I'm a Widow main, man.
This guy's wearing that little t-shirt.
Lil?
Moving on, let's have a look at the standings right now. And from the looks of it, it seems like even though for this group, they got until round 7, everything might come to an end in round 5 because the next match between Game Home and Robert Emotion will probably decide who goes into the top 8.
Exactly. These two teams have not lost a single match at all.
And these are Vietnamese teams as well, where we already have 2 Vietnamese teams in the top 8. So these guys are looking to join their brothers up there.
Yep, and on the first map, Hollywood and Sirabi exploding onto the scene with that fully channeled rocket barrage into the enemy team.
And then he switches up to a Reinhardt during the street phase. Landed a really good Earth Shatter, but man, Voidbreaker on high ground dealt damage onto us that Reinhardt takes him down.
Yeah, and even Raijin on that Nano Blade, he got so many good quick kills with it and made Game Home scramble for cover.
And you know what's interesting? Both teams have really good Genjis. Golden Stake from Game Home, and then on the side of Robert Emotion, we have Raijin.
Yeah, but I do think that Robert Emotion, in general, were better at nullifying the ultimates of Game Home with their good positioning and team play.
Personally though, I think Sentinel was rather impressive, especially on like a couple of heroes, but most of all, a real game changer on Zarya.
Are you a Zarya main now?
Maybe. I like them big ones.
Okay.
Yeah, and we go. So Game Home successfully defends and take the map 4-3.
And the next map, we have the Temple of Anubis, where things got really interesting when Game Home tried to run a single support Lucio for their initial lineup.
But they made it work. Considering that there's only one support, you have 5 other players now doing the DPS.
Adding to that, Sentinel's Widowmaker scored a first entry elimination onto the side of Robert Emotion's Anna 10 seconds into the game.
And Sirabi, on that Pharah, the hero for his team, coming in from the side and taking out Robert Emotion.
Man, how flexible can one player be? Sirabi plays an amazing Reinhardt, and then he brings out a Pharah as well. Wow, what a player.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a wasted Blizzard from Sentinel actually allowed Robert Emotion to come back onto the point to secure it and take it to a second attack phase. This game was super close.
And just one misstep from Raijin though. Robert Emotion comes falling up the high tower, and Sirabi just dealt so much damage onto the side of Robert Emotion, hunting players down like a hawk.
I love how it ended with that awesome Pharah Rocket Barrage, sealing the deal for Game Home, taking the match 2-0. After that victory in round 5, Game Home are well on their way to earning that spot in the top 8. And what happened was, even in round 6 and 7, teams like Imaginary Friends and Robert Emotion, they fought valiantly, but they could not catch up with Game Home. So let's have a look at the final standings in Group 4. So there you have it, Avalon Temple from Singapore and Game Home from Vietnam advanced to the top 8. Now we have the highlights of the week coming up. Before we do that, let's have a look at the 2 players from the 2 teams that just advanced to the top 8. We have Avalon Temple's Amzi and then Game Home Sentinel. Both are big Zarya users, right?
Yep, so as you look at the stats, you can see Sentinel actually edges MZ out a tiny bit in terms of stats. But at the same time, both of these teams, we saw them, be the real key game changers.
I mean, both of these players are amazing with their Zarya. But hey, Overwatch is a team game. You need to work with every other hero in your team.
Right, so I can't wait to see them in the top 8. Now let's get to the highlights. First off, we have MJ's awesome Zarya in their matchup against 4K Gaming.
And look at that, Zarya with the flanks coming in from behind, getting a really good grab on, setting up for his team, clearing the side of 4K Gaming.
And his tracking as well, just, pinpoint accuracy right there.
Next up, we have Zygot's sharpshooting Widowmaker.
Yeah, look at that, the map awareness coming up from Zygot takes the Reaper down, going for more kills as well. Look at it closely, you can see him getting another kill on towards the Mercy, and then getting a kill from a Diva as well, and then getting one more elimination on towards that 76.
And then we have Golden Stick and Serabi's combo.
There you go, you can actually see Golden Stick spots out that 76 on high ground, and then Serabi comes from the back lines, not allowing that 76 to go anywhere, takes them down, and then following up with a Winston jumping on towards the enemy side. Swift strikes instead as well, going in together with the Pharah, dealing a lot of damage on towards the enemy team.
Yep, Golden Stick got a lot of resets in that fight actually.
And then there's Mitch's Tracer play and Avalon Hexa taking on Imaginary Friends.
Look at that, Mitch not allowing Cryptic to come back on the point, as well as rejecting that sound barrier in midair, allowing his team to come back to the point and capture the point.
And finally, we have random name 69, Orisa.
Okay, Orisa's Overwatch is newest hero in the game, so not a lot of people not really know how to use it well, but look at this, random name 69, placing the shield at a really good spot here, not allowing any damage to be taken near that small choke point, and dealing damage at the same time with a machine gun. And not only that, he drops down the supercharger, allowing his team to get more damage as well, and then proceeds to spawn camp them.
Yep, and Orisa goes, bye-bye.
Now let's have a look at the matchups we have for next week.
Yeah, we have 16 teams, all trying to book a spot in the top 8.
A lot of exciting matchups to look forward to in the next round. Any particular ones that you guys are picking?
So for Group 5, I do think Bazaar from Thailand and Orion from Singapore, 2 very good teams to look out for.
As for Group 6, I got my eyes on Underbelt from Thailand and Saizon VN from Vietnam.
You have your eyes on Underbelt.
I mean, I got my eyes on your Underbelt.
Whoa, easy there, Tiger. All right, so we got more giveaways for you guys. What do we have for this week?
So today we have this super cool Sombra t-shirt, right? And we have 3 of them to give away to some lucky winners. To stand a chance, all you have to do is unscramble this word.
Now all you have to do is post on our Facebook page with the correct answer. Entries are allowed until April 14th, 11:59 p.m. GMT +8.
And here's a tip for you guys. Boop.
That's it?
Yep, that's it.
That's all?
That's all I'm gonna give you.
All right, that's it for us. Thanks for watching, and we'd like to thank our special guest, Afis. Thanks for joining us here today, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. I had a blast.
All right, so see you guys next week.
Bye.